Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and this evening we're going to be having a look at the prospects of the first sort of heat wave for the United Kingdom, potentially coming sort of into the coming week, into next weekend. Now, a reminder, if you do enjoy my videos, make sure you do like and subscribe, as I do post daily. But at the moment, we're looking at the GFS run, and you can see lower pressure is coming in off the Atlantic. We've got high pressure to our east, and it doesn't look like a particularly warm sort of spell of weather. You can see very cold air that we've had sitting over the top of us is starting to move to our east. We've had a bit of snow, a bit of freezing rain. Nothing too much has come of it. There's been a lot of snow on radar, but unfortunately, for those who enjoy snow, especially in the west, who haven't seen a lot of snow from the snowy spell, a lot of it has sort of sublimated in the air, which basically means the snow has evaporated. As it falls through very dry air, it turns back to water vapor. So unfortunately, where you haven't seen the very heavy bursts, not much of that snow has actually made it to ground level. But we are starting to see a push of much milder air coming in, so there'll be more showers and there'll be heavier rain overnight to tomorrow. And if we move back to the pressure charts, you can see low pressure starts to take control. We start to build up a southwesterly wind. Now it will be turning us milder this week, but with still low pressure firmly in charge, especially further northwards and westwards, it won't feel particularly warm or mild. You will definitely be able to feel that it's a lot milder than it was this week. So you do have that going for you, but again, still, if you're outside and it's pouring rain, even if it's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 degrees, it's still going to feel pretty miserable. But it's looking like towards the end of next week, into next weekend, we get a build of high pressure towards Europe, and it's caused by this low pressure running out of America. Now, that current area of low pressure, you can see it here, is actually bitterly cold air. Now, I made a video earlier, and check that out, about the plunge of very cold air into America. And it's looking like that plunge is going to actually send us into sort of a heat wave. Now, you might be wondering, why is record-breaking American cold sending the UK into a heat wave? Well, because what happens in America does actually quite significantly affect us. The jet stream moves from west to east on a westerly wind, and it hasn't been particularly strong so far this winter. But one thing that does power it up, one of the factors that can power it up, is this strong temperature contrast between bitterly cold air towards Canada and warmer air towards the United States. Now, generally, that does power the jet stream and powers more of a flat jet stream. When you have blocking, it can sometimes push that further southwards. But in this situation, because the blocking is on the other side of the pole, if we go to the northern hemisphere, you can see there's more blocking on the other side of the pole and not over towards Greenland. This cold air is not being shoved towards Europe like it was last week, it's being shoved into America. What happens with that is you see that bitterly cold air drives southwards and it moves northwards again. And what it does to the jet stream, it basically amplifies it. Instead of a flat westerly pattern bringing us air coming from off Canada, so polar maritime air, which is reasonably cold but not particularly cold for snow, maybe giving highs of around average 5, 6, 7, 8 degrees. Instead, it amplifies the jet stream and it's going to plunge low pressure out into the middle of the Atlantic. If we go back to the European view, you see high pressure plunges into the middle of the Atlantic. The jet stream rides further northwards up towards Greenland. You can see that these lows moving northwards and then moving southwards again, back into sort of Scandinavia, parts of Russia. And what this does is it allows an area of high pressure to build. It basically allows high pressure to take a foothold to the south of the UK, and it gets reinforcements from the Azores high, which then builds in, and then we get this push of quite warm air with higher pressure over the top of the country. Now, if this high pressure built not being supported by the Azores high and not being built from the south, if it more if it's sort of built over the top of the UK, we would have colder air underneath it, and we would likely see an inversion, perhaps with cold, frosty nights and cool, but sunny, pleasant days. Because it's built from the south, we have got quite warm air within it, maybe 5, maybe getting it to potentially 10 degrees at 850 HPA, which could produce temperatures on the surface around 12, 13 degrees widely, maybe 14, 15 degrees in a few spots. And there's still the potential, if the extreme end of the ensembles came off, we could be seeing anything up to maybe 17, 18, 19 degrees. Potentially. It's not guaranteed to happen. This could just end up being sort of a 12, 13 degree sort of mini warm-up, which will feel quite balmy compared to this week. And it's sort of next weekend into the following week, high pressure is going to build in, and it's going to settle things down. Now, at the moment, it's not guaranteed that it's going to be very warm. As I said, it could be 12, 13 degrees, it could be 17, 18 degrees. And again, some ensemble members, after a couple of days of this high pressure, do build the high further towards Scandinavia, and it does allow more of a continental flow. Now, on this GFS run, there's quite warm air, mild air over Europe, but on other GFS runs and other ensemble members, you can see there's colder air just to our north and our east and towards Eastern Europe. And there's potential, if this high pressure moves a bit further northwards, it could undercut, and we could start to bring in a cooler continental feed. Now, it's not going to bring anything very cold, but it could just suppress the temperatures a little bit. So it's not guaranteed that we're going to see warmer temperatures. Beyond that, the high pressure remains out into Europe, and we get quite a big Euro high, and it's pushing the jet stream very far northwards, and more high pressure builds in. And we remain fairly dry and dry and settled in the south with quite mild temperatures. But then we have quite cold air to our north, which has reinforced itself. As blocking has disappeared, it's allowed the jet stream to move further northwards, and that really is one of the reasons why we get high pressure built over us, as the amplification of the jet stream from the American winter storm and that plunge of very cold air allows high pressure to take a foothold, especially over southern parts of the UK, and as the jet stream flattens again, blocking disappears to our north, that high pressure can take more of a foothold and controls our weather. But as we head right towards the end of the run, you can see the high pressure doesn't want to move back to our north. We are in sort of a blocking regime. Now, with the current upcoming potentially warm spell, the blocking's over the top of the country, but it will want to build northwards again. And by the end of this GFS run, we're not going very cold, but if you ran this on another couple hours, another couple days, we would be plunging back into the freezer for the first month of March. So that's one caveat with this high pressure. It's not a direct extension of the Azores High. It is, the Azores High does help it build, but the Azores High is not sort of extending over the top of the UK. So once it loses its foothold, it's not going to drop southwards again. This high pressure is homegrown. It's sort of over towards Northern Europe, and it's going to want to go somewhere else. And this GFS run is pushing it up towards Greenland, and some other runs, especially GFS ensembles, are showing that as well, and it's plunging us back into the freezer, potentially for the end of February, back into first week of March. But again, it's quite uncertain, and at the moment we're really focusing on that milder, warmer temperatures coming up. If we look through the GEM run, again, very similar pattern, and as we see those lows moving to our north, and when we get a big amplification of the jet stream, you see that dip in the jet, allowing higher pressure from the south to build a big sort of Euro high, and you can also see some high pressure moving further northwards, and when you maintain this big block of high pressure over the top of us, and towards the end of the run you can see getting reinforcements from the Atlantic. It'll be interesting to go see what happens with this, as we've got a very strong polar vortex, a stratospheric polar vortex towards Greenland and northern Canada, which will want to bring westerly winds back and move the jet stream a bit further southwards than it currently is. But if it does that, blocking could take hold. It'll be interesting to see what happens and runs on from this, as it's looking likely there may be a bit more amplification. And if this blocking stays to our north, we've got very cold air to our northeast, You see warmer air is towards Iceland and sort of towards Svalbard. As a result of this amplification bringing warmer air advection further northwards, it could plunge us back into the freezer again with easterly or northeasterly winds. So it's really one to watch. Now the ECMWF run, I've already seen this, and it really does go quite warm on this run. Now, as you can see, that low pressure's out in the Atlantic. It's going to bring some unsettled spells of weather, but it's going to allow this high pressure to build. You see, we have these far-fetched southerly winds and some very warm temperatures. The 10-degree isosphere moves all the way up towards Scotland, which could provide some very warm temperatures, and where we get the Föhn effect, which is where air heads up mountains and hills and descends. That warms it up, and there's potential we could see high teens, maybe even 20 degrees with the Föhn effect. But elsewhere, again, low to mid-teens quite widely. But as you can see, more warm air advection, which is pumping warm air into the Arctic, and it's going to encourage higher pressure to build to our northwards. So as always with this sort of pattern, it could lead us to a more cold spell afterwards, and you can see higher pressure is already building towards Scandinavia, although it's still giving us warm temperatures. High pressure is already building to Scandinavia, and we have got bitterly cold air to our northeast, out towards Scandinavia, parts of Russia, and parts of Eastern Europe. That could, if higher pressure does build towards sort of Iceland and Scandinavia, could plunge us back into the freezer. Again, it's just the potential at this stage. But if we run this back, you can see the really quite warm temperatures, getting to 12 degrees above average 850 HPA. And I can show you on the GFS ensembles in a minute how much higher this temperatures is above average. Now we'll look at meteoseal.fr for the for one bit of the GFS ensembles. This is not shown at Weather Central, so I've come to Meteoseal to see it, and it is the ensemble members for pressure. So it's not showing any temperatures, it's just showing pressure. So anywhere around 1010, 1015 below is lower pressure, and anything above is higher pressure. So as you can see, we're high pressure dominates at the moment, but lower pressure is going to be running in off the Atlantic. Further west you are, this is for London, but further west you are, this is going to be lower pressure. And you can see low pressure does take the cold for a few days next week. Before the weekend, higher pressure does build in, and then we go fairly high pressure dominated. Now, that's one very positive thing, because regardless of what happens, whether we do see a colder undercut, whether we do see some colder air moving in from the east eventually, or whether we do see a very quite warm sort of mini heat wave, it will be very high pressure dominated, which means dry weather, which I definitely think that most people very much enjoy. A bit of dry weather, lighter winds, maybe a bit colder overnight, but it will allow skies to clear and we could see some very nice spring days, regardless of whether we do see 17, 18 degrees or only see 12, 13 degrees. It will feel fairly pleasant with the higher pressure. Now if we have a look at more temperatures, you can see at the moment we're quite cold, the dew points are very low, but the upper airs are rising quite quickly. By tomorrow, most areas will be in the warmer air, milder air, but it will still feel cool on the surface. So it's only really around Monday, Tuesday where all areas start to get the full effect of the milder sector moving across. Then we go a little bit cooler as colder air comes in, a part of the cold sector coming with the low pressure, before we do go much warmer and potentially milder again, with that higher pressure build, potential for a heat wave, mini heat wave really. I wouldn't really call it sustained at the moment, as it's quite uncertain. It's quite uncertain after maybe 2 or 3 days of being at that temperature. You can see where the ECMWF was going up to 10 degrees is outliers at the moment. There are more in the longer term, but again, there are a lot colder ones in the longer term, so you can't really, they sort of they kind of counterbalance each other. But towards a reliable time frame, you can see the average gets to around 5 degrees, which is about 7, 8 degrees above average. So very warm, considering this time of the year it's actually around the coldest at 850 HPA for the average and the mean. But we do see a bit of a cooling trend, and that could be the undercut of lower pressure coming off, undercut of that cooler air coming off the continent, or it could be lower pressure influencing off the Atlantic. Again, it's difficult to say, as all the runs will be showing slightly different outcomes, and we really want to watch over the coming days whether this is sort of change in pattern. As you can see, some ensemble members then dip down very cold as we start to pull in easterly winds again. And as I said, there is a possibility of that towards the last week of February, early March. Bitterly cold air, maybe 5, 6 ensemble members going for it. So it is a minority, but it's a significant minority. But others are remaining fairly warm for a few more days before dropping to back around average temperatures towards the end of February, start of March. If we have a look at the 2 meter temperatures, if we get this to load, you can see at the moment we're bitterly cold, but it rises up to around 7, 8, 9 degrees. But then by sort of next Saturday, see widely everyone's above 10 degrees on the ensembles, average around 12.6. So again, maybe 12, 13, maybe up, some going up towards 14, 15. Now the ensemble members won't be able to detect all the sort of minute temperature contributors which could push the temperature up a little bit more, the sun being warm, Fern effect, etc. So we could be seeing maybe 17, 18 degrees with that. And generally we stay above 10 degrees, many going to around 13, 14 degrees most days, some going up to maybe 16, 15, 16, 17 degrees. But again, as we move further into the longer term, many ensemble members are showing even milder temperatures coming, but then other ensemble members are showing us going back into the freezer with February the 25th, one ensemble member showing highs of 0.1, another showing a high of 16.1, so 16 degree temperature difference. So it's still quite uncertain what's going to happen sort of beyond the next sort of 7 to 8, 9, 10 days. As ever with these models, they do show a lot of data out to 384 hours, but unfortunately anything after around 7, 8, 9 days is truly quite unreliable. But at the moment, it is looking like we could be seeing at least a mini sort of heat wave, where temperatures could get to at least the low teens quite widely. So it'll be very interesting. It'll be very dry as well, so it'll be fairly pleasant, and it'll be quite a change this week. But anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe new, and I'll see you again for another video tomorrow.